Yeah.
This is Valerie Cleary, our athletic director.
Yes.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit about, this has to do with particularly the chapter we did on, there's a lot of other issues we talk about. This is the chapter we did on collegiate sports. And we talked a lot about the NCAA and its role and how it got started and its role. And there's other chapters, for instance, on women and sports, talks a lot about Title IX and stuff like that, but mostly I want to talk about that. So, but let's just start in general. What do you think your biggest challenges are as athletic director?
Oh my goodness. It depends on the day. It definitely depends on the day. But I would think the biggest challenge is from the personnel standpoint. I mean, you're dealing with so many moving parts, from your student athletes to your coaches to your administrative staff. I mean, that's a big piece of it, because I really think that group has to be a really fine oiled running machine in order for all the other things to happen. The game management, the actual coaching, the recruiting, the fundraising, the construction development, whatever it might be, all of those things are going to be dependent upon who you have in those roles to kind of keep that. So that's always a big challenge, is just managing a bunch of people and a lot of moving parts every day.
You have something like 300 student athletes, something in that range?
Yeah, we're right under 300 right now, with about 180 or so that are actually on scholarship. And then our staff. I mean, if you look at our head coaches, assistant coaches, all that. I mean, we're well into probably 80 plus employees as well. So I mean, it's a big operation. Yeah,
you have how many sports? 12 or something like that?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on how you count, your men's and women's track and field and cross country,
right.
But yeah.
And men's and women's tennis has really been split.
Yeah, they're split.
So different coaches, different things, like that. So, obviously we're a Division I school in the NCAA, and what kind of, do you see the NCAA as a positive force or pain in the butt, or how do you see that?
Again, it probably depends on the day. No, but for the most part, I mean, the NCAA has a really tough job of managing all of collegiate athletics. So whether you're at an Alabama in a football bowl series type school, or whether you're at a place like I came from, Willamette, as a Division III school, they're managing anywhere from the large Division I institutions, including the FBS, and then us that we're in the FCS, the Football Championship Series tier of schools. And they have the D2 and D3. So they do a really good job, I think, of making sure that the kind of the overall philosophy of collegiate athletics is really put out there into the mainstream. Sometimes that's the good, and sometimes that's the bad and the ugly. And I think they do a really good job, though, of making sure that we really keep our student athletes at the forefront of the reason why we have collegiate athletics. And it's a changing tide every year. In the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about pay to play. Should their student athletes be paid? Also, cost of attendance, to be able to say that with their scholarship dollars, where they're actually able to live. Are they actually able to live as students? And so the NCAA does a really good job of helping to manage that as well. And then, of course, the key component that they do is through our compliance and our legislation to ensure that all of us are following the rules to make sure that we're operating in the best interest of our student athletes.
Over the last, it's been a number of years now, but in the last decade or so, they developed several measures of academic success to make sure there's academic progress, and then graduation rates to make sure that schools are doing that. If you look at statistics, it's made a big difference in graduation rates. There were some major programs where graduating very many students.
Especially in minority males.
Right, that's right. And minority males in basketball, which was a big problem in football to some degree. Do you think that's helped?
I think so. I think it's given the accountability not only to our student athletes, but to the coaches and the administrators as well. Fortunately, at a place like Portland State or even Willamette, we didn't actually have a lot of those issues, because the students that are typically attracted to a place like Portland State, I mean, while we do have students that continue to play after they've graduated, that proportion is smaller than at some other institutions. So our students know that they're here to be a student and then an athlete. And I think also that's helped with our students to to really set the hard line of, if you're not taking care of business in the classroom, you're not going to be able to participate in collegiate athletics. And then also to make sure that everyone knows that our goal is to make sure that our students do graduate from the institution. Coach Barnum says it the best. He goes, I have 4 years to prepare these guys for their next 40 years.
Right.
And that's a very true statement. So we want to make sure that our student athletes are making the progress towards degree, so that way when they're done with their eligibility, that they walk out of here with their degree in hand.
You have a budget of around $13 or $14 million. Seems like a lot of money. But I don't know. I can guess. I don't know what the University of Oregon's budget is, but it's over $100 million.
Yeah, it's a lot more than 13. I can tell you that much.
So is it difficult to be competitive at that level? I mean, we'd obviously like to have a lot more money, and you're out trying to raise a lot more money.
Right.
But how do you think about that in comparison? We'll play Oregon periodically in football and
We're getting ready to play Oregon State this
Oregon
year.
State, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's always a challenge. I think with our peers, our competitors, we're probably middle of the pack in regards to funding. We have a very unique situation here in Portland in regards to cost of living, those kind of things for our student athletes that we're always really trying to juggle in regards to the cost of attendance and the value of their scholarship and what does that mean for our student athletes. I will never turn down the opportunity to get more funding, but we definitely have to get creative. We've seen that a lot in the last couple of years with football and how they travel. And through our budget analysis, we've actually determined that depending upon when they play, then sometimes it's actually more cost benefit for us to charter or fly commercially. So you'll see a little bit of change. It won't be quite the Americana tour that Coach Barnum has had the guys on, but we're always trying to be budget conscious, always. We don't generate a lot of revenue here at Portland State, and a lot of our peer competitors don't as well, just because of the nature of our demographic. Sac State's very similar as well. When you're in an urban environment that you're competing with the Timbers, the Trailblazers, or a concert on a Saturday night, you know, we're not looking at a sport like football to generate a bunch of revenue. We would hope we get to that point, but we can't build our budget upon that. So that's where we're a little bit unique, that any money that we do have coming in, whether it's from, you know, the state lottery or from the university in general, or of course our fundraising efforts, is always very beneficial.
Are you the only woman AD in the Big Sky?
I'm not. I'm very excited. No, I'm not. It is so exciting. So we have Lisa Campos, who's down at Northern Arizona University, and then we're really fortunate that the Big Sky has a female commissioner.
Really?
And so Andrea Williams, she's our commissioner as well. She came to us from the Big Ten, and she's fantastic. She was a collegiate student athlete in 2 sports at Texas A&M. She played volleyball and basketball, and she was just out here a few weeks ago for a campus visit to really see the uniqueness of Portland State and what we kind of have the challenge of, you know, getting folks to tennis practice or tennis competition or where track practices, which is very different on an urban campus than it is at a more residential campus such as a Montana or an Eastern. And so there's a few of us here in the area. And what's really great about the Northwest is with the Division I institutions, you have a female AD at Seattle U, at University of Washington, and then also we have at some of the Division III schools in the area at University of Puget Sound, Pacific Lutheran University, and then Lewis and Clark.
And Western.
And Western, yep. Barb, who I took her place my first time, yep. So she's at
Good
Western.
Friend, yeah.
Yeah, so no, it's a very unique situation out here in the West that we have so many women in leadership roles in athletics.
Do you think we have a good balance, particularly with regards to minority participation in sports and coaching, particularly?
Right. You know, I think here at Portland State we do a pretty good job, and I haven't delved into kind of analyzing all of our staff and anything like that, but every time that we go out for a hire, you know, that's something that we always keep in mind in regards to our gender proportionality and also our diversity on staff is really important, because if you look at the demographics of our student body, of our student athletes, and also just the general campus body as well, we want to really work hard of making sure that our student athletes, the campus in general, has folks that are in those positions that really mirror who they are. And I think it just adds a different component to our operations. That's a big initiative with diversity through the NCAA, diversity and inclusion. And it was interesting when I was actually hired on at Willamette, my first year going to the NCAA convention, I was in the Division III kind of general session, which is the largest division in the NCAA, which was fascinating to me as well. But they had this chart that showed outgoing ADs based upon gender and ethnicity and incoming ADs. And there was one in the minority woman, and I looked at it, I go, I think that's me. And then they confirmed that it was me, literally the one. And I lose sight of that sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was just interviewed by Comcast the other day, and it's something that I need to do a better job of recognizing that, because a lot of times for me, I come to work, I have my job that I have to do, and I'm just me. We were talking about it on our walk over, but I also have to realize that the role that I'm filling for all of our student athletes in regards to them looking at athletic administration as an opportunity for them professionally,
Right.
that they're really looking to see who's in those spots and what can they learn from them and what do they have in common with those folks. And so for our female student athletes, our minority students, our minority women, that's something that I have to really embrace and make sure that I'm using my role as almost a podium to help encourage them to pursue a career in athletics.
Yeah, we had, there is the equivalent within Oregon of the Rooney Rule, right? Did that come up in your hire?
Yes, it did actually. And so my process was a little different because obviously I had been here before. Right. But they had to get approval. The president's office needed to get approval through our Office of Diversity and also HR and General Counsel to ensure that they didn't need to open up the search nationally and that they could do a direct appointment. And somehow I think because of my minority status, my female status, but then also I apparently have checked the boxes and I was able to come back in and make a smooth transition.
Well, one of the things that people have looked at is one of the changes that took place in the coaching that staff was women's basketball, where female head coach had now been replaced with a male head coach, and it was done properly. He's a good coach. Everything seems fine, but statistics do show in the chapter we have on gender and athletics that the percentage of women coaching women's sports is decreasing.
It's actually decreased after Title IX, which was not the intent.
But it went up and then back down, right?
Yeah. And so it's a fascinating area in athletics that we're always trying to evaluate, especially during that hiring process, to ensure that we are making, that we are looking for the most diverse candidates that are going to be the best fit for the role. Ideally, if you could find a female coach to coach a female team that has the qualifications, then that's kind of what your direction is. But oftentimes, that you're looking for that best fit for the program at the time. Right.
And so so you went out and found the best coach you can. Turned out to be a man, and but it was the best candidate.
Right.
You feel any institutional pressure or just general pressure, given that you're such a representative figure, to actually go out and make those hires? Do you think people might be more critical of your choices, given yourself and your background?
I don't feel the pressure myself. I think it's just the part of the role, no matter who is sitting in this position, that needs to be a high priority in regards to your hiring and personnel decision making that you do. Definitely though, that when you do make a decision and you're sitting in this role and you might look a certain way, people might evaluate it from a different perspective of what was your intention or how did you come to that decision. But I think as long as you're consistent with your decision making, and also depending upon your staff as well, we have a very strong group of associates that always weigh into any of those major decisions. So it's not just me making the decisions. Ultimately, I'm the voice of the decision, but it's in consultation with our leadership group.
Another question, do you have any suggestions or advice maybe to facilitate more people of minority status, more members of color or females or different genders being able to take upon leadership roles within NCAA or within general athletics?
Yeah, and I would really challenge it's folks that are in my position. The NCAA, and we talked about this earlier, does a really, really great job of providing opportunities for minority student athletes and female student athletes in regards to leadership development, where they actually have some very strong programming specific to those groups to encourage them to pursue careers in athletics administration or coaching as well. Just this past year, I got back from the NCAA convention, and I was kind of doing double duty still at that point, but I was a mentor for Division III diversity and inclusion for student athletes that are currently in Division III that were interested in going to athletic administration. And one of the criteria is that they were focusing on minority students or women that are interested in that, and I was a mentor to two students there. So I think that they do a really, really good job. I think it comes down down to us, though, is to consistently encourage students. So as they approach us and say, hey, I want to know more about your profession, can I meet with you, is don't turn down those meetings. Go have a cup of coffee with them. Talk to them about the realities of what this world is, because sometimes it looks really glamorous from the outside, and it's a lot of long nights, it's definitely a lot of hours, and also high stress and high demands, based upon the light that shine on athletics, specifically collegiate athletics. So I think it's really that encouragement and also that coaching that goes along with how do you get into that field. It's not an easy field to break into. So sometimes you have to start very much at the bottom as a graduate assistant or unpaid volunteer. And a lot of students, they walk out of the university with their degree and they're expecting to get into the job force right away. And that's not the common path in athletics.